Welcome to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. And on today's video, I've got the very famous and popular Seiko SKX007. The model code is 7S260020. Now this watch doesn't need much of an introduction. If you're into Seikos or watches, you'll know that this watch, especially as of late, has got a massive cult following. It's actually blowing up right now. It's one of the most hottest selling pieces on the internet because this got discontinued not long ago. So at this point, every man and his dog should know all there is to know about the Seiko SKX007. If you don't, then that's what this video is here. Let's see if you learn something new. We're going to get the specifications and dimensions out the way. So spec wise, it's running a 7S26 movement with a day and date complication. So this movement is the older Seiko movement, and it doesn't have the hand winding mechanism or the hacking function. And this is the same movement used in the Seiko 5 models and the Seiko 5 Sports. It comes with a 200 meters ISO certified dive watch. It's got a screw down crown and a normal hardlex crystal with a 120 click bezel. Dimensions: 42 millimeters on the diameter, 13.5 on the thickness, and a 45 millimeter lug to lug length. The lug width is 22 millimeters. Now that we got that out the way, let's have a look and let's go into it aesthetically and functionally. So let's have a look. So the SKS X007 is a descendant of the Seiko Turtle, the 6309. So the older Turtle that was produced by Seiko. So that Turtle evolved, if you will, into the 7000 series and the 7002 divers, which look very similar to this. And then from that, this SKX007 came in. Now, the reason I mentioned that is, even if you look at the newer Turtles, the reissues, you'll see they share the bezel shape and design, and they also share the handset. Now this is a very common handset that is used in a lot of Seikos, and there are a few design cues from the older modeling on this watch, and even the newer models do have a few design cues that are used in this watch. So looking in close onto the dial, you can see the indices. It's a printed dial, very plain, very simple dial. It's a matte finish. I think the thing that stands out here is you've got the divers 200 meters written at the bottom. I like that it's in orange. It does stand out quite a bit. And then along right at the bottom, you've got the 7S26002 identification at the bottom there. Obviously the Seiko logo at the top. Black chapter ring. The hands. Basic hands. And from that, around the bezel insert, you've got your markers that are marked in 10-minute increments. Now, with a lot of bezel inserts, you'll find the minute indices here, you've got straight lines. I actually think I do like the dots. The bezel insert itself is aluminium. And moving on to the bezel. Now, as you know with Seikos, they're not very consistent in the bezel movements. So some of these bezels are very loose. Some of them are buttery smooth. Some of them are slightly harder than others. But the thing is, these watches are quite old. They have been out for a while, so you don't know how, what kind of use the watch has had. So the bezel's not bad. It isn't the best, but I don't think any Seiko, does really have a distinguished bezel, except I'd say the Seiko Monsters. I do like the way the bezel action is on them. So on the case, you've got a 4 o'clock screw down crown. As I mentioned, this movement doesn't hand wind or hack. Now, here's the funny thing. A lot of people are used to the 4R36 movement by now. And personally for me, my first like 7S26 movement, I actually thought it was quite cool that the second hands kept on going. And what you can do if your power reserve is quite low, you can actually stop the second hand by just putting a bit of pressure, backward pressure, and that will freeze your second hand. And from what I've researched, it causes no harm to the actual movement. And what some people also say is if you hold it in reverse further, if you hold it backwards, you can make the second hand go back. But that isn't advised. Personally, I've not done it on this one myself. I've had previous models which I've managed to just hold it back, or when you go make the hands go backwards, the actual second hand goes backwards as well, which I think just looks quite cool actually. So flip it around. We've got a stainless steel case back with a 3D logo. And you've got your model numbers, serial numbers stamped, stainless steel, etc. Strap wise, this isn't the original strap. The original diver straps for these older Seikos, they were that really tough rubbery material. I'm not a big fan of those, and I think not a lot of people are, from what I gather. They're very stiff. Once they're in, they're almost impossible to take out of the lugs. I remember the last one I had, I ended up cutting it out because it's just so damn solid and stiff. This one is from actually a newer Seiko diver. It's a lot softer, as you can see, and it feels a lot better. So I've just stuck it on this watch. So this is a basic original standard SKX007. And the reason I make a point of pointing at that it is standard is because these watches, you can mod the life out of them. They are their most popularly modded watch. Now I don't know what started it, where it was just this particular model where you had companies out there actually investing money into making parts for them, aftermarket parts. But for this watch, you can literally change everything. You've got companies like Crystal Times will make you new cases. People mod them with a see-through case back. You can change the bezel inserts, you can change the bezels, you can change the crystals into your double dome sapphires, etc. You can change chapter, ring, dial, hands, literally everything. And they are, even the crown. There's a multitude of parts for this watch, which one of the biggest pluses with this watch, as I mentioned, like everyone should know about this watch. There's not really anything else I can say, but the parts I can comment on this watch is very versatile. So you can do anything to this. Literally, pretty much any strap will look good on this. They look particularly good on oysters, jubilees, stainless steel bracelets. You can stick on any leather strap. You can put on any silicone rubber, whatever. And with all the mods out, literally you can have thousands and thousands of versions of this watch with the same case. So that's one of the reasons why it is very popular. Secondly, I think in the last, I'd say six months roughly, in the last 6 months, this watch has caught a massive boom. There's a lot of hype around it. That is because the watch was discontinued. I get that, but the prices are getting to a ridiculous point now where you've got second-hand watches, SKXs. The highest I've seen them go for around 230, £240 mark, which is nowhere near what this watch is actually worth. It's just the way the market is. It's just all the hype around it, and I think it is, similar to the COVID-19. It's a sheep mentality, and a lot of people just, blowing a lot of gas. I've had a few discussions with people on Facebook where you've got people saying, that this is one of the best watches there. I mean, it depends what you're trying to say when you say that. So let's bring it back to why this was made. This watch was made by Seiko as a budget tool watch to make it affordable to your general public. And that is what it is. The movement is a bog standard movement. It's quite an old and rudimentary movement. It is, I believe, 21 joules. That being said, yes, it is a super robust and reliable movement. The thing is, this is very much value for money when it came out, and that is what it is. It's nothing more than that. You've got a ton of watches that are way better than this, and they will outperform this. But I think it's because of the fan club behind it that the prices are rocketing. And obviously the whole modding scene. The modding scene has a massive input on this. So like I said, because the majority of the mods out there are for the SKX007s, you can do a lot with them. And it's a way for people to make money as well. All the modders out there, you can change the look of it, make it really individual to yourself. But then, then the watch isn't what it is in effect. So if you do change the movement and stuff, you are putting a newer movement in there, the 4R36, NH36 movement. So then you're actually taking away from what the watch is, and that's my personal opinion. When it comes to the value of the watch, I think I don't think they'll go any higher than they are. I think they might just stay at this price. But if they do go higher, it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And the ones that are going to be worth the most are going to be the bog standard original ones. That's with anything, cars or any sort of collectible. So if you're buying it to, just wear, hold on, and just see what happens in the future, then don't mod it, and then stick to the original. If you're buying it to mod, that's your own choice. Like I said, you won't run out of options. You can literally make this watch look like anything. You can even take the bezel off and put a different, like a pilot style bezel. So there's literally no limit to how you can mod these watches, which I think this is what makes them so great. I understand why people love them. For myself personally, this I just bought is secondhand, but I won't be keeping this. But the only reason I bought my SKX was because I collect Seikos, and it was purely because of that. As a collector, you need to have, or you should have, one of these in your collection. And I don't think it's a rugged looking watch. I don't think it looks that great. I think it looks quite ugly, but it's got a massive fan club. And then it does kind of grow on you as a watch. So, that's my personal opinion on this. It is a rugged, solid workhorse of a watch. Fair play to the people that use them for their purpose. You find a lot of these that are just literally fully beat up, and that is what they were for. So I'll show you my personal one. And as you can see, it is modded, but I bought it. Now the reason I've modded it is, like I said, I wasn't much of a fan when I first had the SKX 007s. I only bought it for the reason I mentioned. And the first one I bought was not modded; it was bog standard. And then I saw a SKX up for sale, which had a lot of mods done on it. So I mean, I didn't need to spend any money on it, except a couple of things which I'll talk about. So it had an exhibition case back already, which the owner before me had fitted, and then he changed the bezel insert to ceramic. He changed the movement to a 4R36, and he put on a sapphire crystal. And that's what I loved about it, that it was modded to look standard. So I love stock mods, if that makes sense. You know, it's something subtle, and from the outside it looks the same as the normal Seiko SKX, but you know the difference. So that's why I bought it. The things which I did do to it is, as you can tell, I've changed the chapter ring, but the first thing I actually did was I changed this second hand. I put an orange one in. I just thought it complements that logo at the bottom really well, and just that subtle mod for me looked amazing. I think the reason I did want to mod a watch, because obviously I want this to last. So the fact that it had a NH36 movement was good enough for me, meaning the watch will last for quite some time, and it'll be pretty accurate. So there we go. And this does come with obviously the hacking hand winding function. Let's change that. On top of that, I think I changed the crown to an S crown, and that's all I did. I mean, I'm not a modder, but I have replaced parts. I've got all the tools actually. But what I do myself is I just restore watches, if that makes sense, because I do trade in them. So I'll change crystals if I have to, and I'll change like bezels, bezel inserts, gaskets, etc. Just so I can put the watch back to a decent condition, and that's it. So here we have the SKX 007. Any features? Yeah, the heartless crystal does have this beveled edge, as you can see, which is quite nice. But it also does do something else, is if you had a dial with a minute track on the actual dial, and then you could possibly take the chapter ring out or put a solid one in, because that beveled edge will just mirror the chapter ring, which I think that is quite a nice touch. It does add a slight dimension to the watch. But yeah, to summarize, you know what, they are what they are. I don't think people should make them into something they're not. They're not that amazing, or you know, they're not one of the all-time best watches out there, but they are brilliant for what they are. And I think if people, you know, didn't create so much hype around them, because even though they are discontinued, there's still bucket loads of these around. You know, on eBay you can, at any given time, you can find like 5-10 of them for sale. So not just yet. Okay, let's give you a loom shot before we finish. One thing that everyone does love about Seiko is the loom. Brilliant loom, very bright. You know, some of the watches I've had or reviewed are over 20 years old, and the loom is still the same. So props to Seiko for that. So that concludes my review of the Seiko SKX007. You know, I really couldn't say anything different or anything new about that, because like I said, this watch is just that damn popular. So I'm hoping everyone does know what they need to know about the Seikos. So subscribe, like, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching.